this is Donna Taggert, the dietitian for Department of Aging and Human Services. September is a lot of things, but believe it or not, it is also Whole Grains Month. It was established in the year 2007 by the Whole Grains Council, and its purpose was to help people understand grains and how to make better choices when it comes to different grains. So what is a whole grain? Basically, all grains are whole until they take part of it away. And there's three parts of whole grain. There's a bran, there's a germ, and the endosperm. When they remove the bran and the germ, what's left is the endosperm. It gives a white, creamy look to white flour, etc. Somewhere way back, they realized they were taking some nutrients out by removing the bran and the grain, and so they put back in nutrients, B vitamins, B1, B2, niacin, iron, and folate, and that is called enriched flour. Now, they didn't put everything back, and that's why a whole grain has everything there, and you don't have to worry about, are you getting all the nutrients? Dietary guidelines for Americans recommend at least half of your grains be whole, and that's about 48 grams of whole grains per day, 48 grams per day, and you're like, well, how do I figure that out? And I'll talk to you about that in a minute. But it basically boils down to if you do 6 servings of grains a day for women is what's recommended, age 50 and more. 3 of them should be whole grains. For men, it's 8, so 4 should be whole grains. So the serving size might be a piece of whole wheat toast, a half a cup of pasta, a third cup of rice. That's kind of the serving size, and I'll show you some ways we can figure out the serving sizes even better. But 98% of Americans are falling short of this recommendation of eating at least half of your grains being whole. Not eating enough whole grains is the number 1 dietary risk factor for death in women, and the number 2 dietary risk factor for death in men, and it's also the number 1 dietary risk factor for type 2 diabetes. Who knew? Eating more whole grains is linked with slower cognitive declines, good for our brains, healthy digestion, good for our gut. It helps decrease inflammation. We all know that's the big buzzword these days. Chronic inflammation is linked with a lot of diseases. Decreases, as I said, the risk of type 2 diabetes. Eating more whole grains lowers the BMI and less obesity, lowers LDL cholesterol. There's a 14% decreased risk in stroke if you eat whole grains, 17% lower risk of colon and rectal cancer, and 22% lower risk of heart disease. I think it's pretty important that we start working whole grains in our diet, especially if only 2% of us are doing that. So how do we do that? What are whole grains? How are we going to figure out where they are in our foods? Well, the real easy way is look at the ingredient list. For here, example, this oatmeal, first ingredient, whole grain oats. So when you see the word whole, you know it's a whole grain. Also, there is a stamp. I don't know if you can see this. It's a tiny little thing. It's a whole grain stamp. Many companies have teamed up with the whole grain councils, and when this stamp is on there, it means that it has at least a half a serving of a whole grain and maybe more. Remember, 48 grams is what they say you should have a day. It says it there, and then on this stamp it says, and obviously you can't read it, I can barely read it, you need glasses for these labels, it says 24 grams. So this serving of this oatmeal would give you almost half of your recommended amounts of the whole grains for the day. So again, not all whole grains have that whole grain stamp. Don't think it's something wrong with it. It's just that that company has not decided yet to team up with the Whole Grain Council. But easy, simple way, look for that word whole. So what are some whole grains? How can we work it into our day? How do we get at least 3? Well, starting in breakfast, oatmeal, very simple way. Oatmeal is a whole grain. Even if it has been put into instant oatmeal, lots of sugar and other things with this, it's still a whole grain. Remember, it said whole grain. Obviously, cooking your own oatmeal and using, less salt, less sugar in it is a better way than going with the instant that has a lot more of that, but it's still a whole grain. Other cereals, here's Cheerios, any of your wheat cereals, bran cereals. Again, looking for the word whole grain, not enriched grain. Say you have egg and toast. Make sure the bread is made with a whole grain flour. This is whole wheat flour, but any of the whole grain flours make it a whole grain. Maybe if you have soup, stew. This is pearl barley. Throw a half a cup, throw some in, and you've got a nice serving of whole grain in your soup. Switching out your pasta. This is a whole grain penne. Here's the box. Big bold letters here, whole grain, so you don't have to go hunting too much. But again, it has the stamp on it. It actually has 56 grams of whole grain. Boy, serving this, you've got your day. And again, the ingredient, whole grain durum wheat. Switching out your rice from the white polished rice. When it's polished and it's white, they've stripped the bran, they've stripped the germ away, and so brown rice has it all there. So serving the brown rice at dinner. Popcorn, whole grain, snack with popcorn. Watch what you put on it. Don't load it with a lot of butter and a lot of salt. The popcorn is a whole grain. And then maybe try some of the newer grains. They're actually called ancient grains because they've been around forever. Probably the most popular of the ancient grains is quinoa. Again, 100% whole grain. Easy cooking, kind of cooks up like rice, and yet it's got the whole grain component to it. Remember, all the reason we want to do these whole grains is because of all the studies that have shown the links between lowering all those risk factors of chronic diseases, of inflammation and stuff like that, and just even to keep our brain healthy is a good reason. So anyway, fall means a lot of things to different people. Pumpkins, cooler weather, football, colorful leaves, hot cocoa. So kind of put that meaning in there too with fall means I need to work whole grains in my diet. So maybe the next time you have that pumpkin latte, have a toasted whole grain bagel with it, and you're getting your whole grains. So anyway, have a great fall. I'll see you back here next month. Have a good time trying to get those whole grains into your diet. Bye.